Escalation clauses. What are they? How do they work? When would you want to use one? How are they written? All that fun stuff we're going to get into today. Hi everybody, my name is Chris. I am with homes719.com, a Colorado Springs based realtor. This video we're going to go into escalation clauses. How does this thing work? And when would you want one? So, an escalation clause is typically utilized in an offer from a buyer to a seller when the buyer wants to pay this much for a house but is willing to go up to this much, and they want to do it in very distinct increments in order to beat a competing offer. So if we put in an offer, let's say at $300,000, and we get a competing offer that comes in, well, I want to beat them. I'm willing to pay more if I have to, but I don't necessarily want to, but I would. Well, how do you do that? You can add a paragraph to your offer that does exactly that. So let's take a look on exactly how that will work. Down here on my tablet, we're going to fill out a couple things. What do you want to pay? All right, let's say you want to pay $300,000, but you'd be willing to pay $350,000 for the house. Now, it doesn't have to be $50,000. It can be any increment you want. It might be $305,000. It might be $400,000. It's up to you. Whatever the numbers are, whatever you can afford, and we'll get into that in a minute, then we can put that in there. And in this example, we're going to say we want our escalation to adjust in $2,000 increments. So, what does that look like? It's kind of a lot of mumbo jumbo, but let's do a little drawing down here, and we can take a look at it. So, let's say we have an offer that we're putting in at that $300,000 mark, right? But we're willing, if we absolutely have to win, to beat that other buyer, we're willing to put $50,000 out there at risk that could escalate. All right? So if there's no competing offers, your purchase price is $300 if they accept it. It's $300, won't change. Nothing happens. But if there is another offer, well, let's draw that in here. We get another offer, comes in, but darn it, it's a little more than yours. This one is at $305,000. What happens next? Well, your escalation clause, if it's in there, automatically increments your offer up to $306,000 because it needs to beat that $305. And in order to do that, it can only increment in $2,000 increments, so it's got to do it 3 times to get to $306, and then it stops because there's no other offer. It just has to beat the $305. It doesn't automatically go to $350 if the escalation clause is written properly. That's how it works. It just automatically just nudges you ahead, just by a little bit. And if necessary, this one could go all the way to $350, the way that we're talking here. So how does that clause work? What does that look like? Well, let's take a look at it. So the clause that I use, and most realtors should use, something similar, I would say, is written by a Colorado real estate attorney. And the reason you want to do that is realtors and agents, brokers, whatever term you want to utilize depending on what's going on, are not authorized to write complex, this is called a provision or clause in a contract, and this is very much a complex clause. So we have to get those from attorneys that have vetted them, that are licensed in Colorado, so that they are written properly and manage the risks. Now, if your realtor or broker is writing these things, that'd be a little sketchy, because if they miss some things, you're going to see it in here, you could be put at serious risk of paying $350,000. All right, so the example that I have here is the standard language that I do utilize in my contracts, and how it works is 4.1, item number 1. What are we doing there? We are referencing 4.1 in the offer and saying, hey, we're going to tweak that one. Number 1 is just an arbitrary number that we use because there's probably multiple things in a contract that might be being tweaked, and this is my number 1 thing in the list. All right, and it goes on to say, in the event of a competing offer on the property, net purchase price for this contract will be $2,000 more. So we're going to add $2,000 to the highest net purchase of a bona fide competing offer on the property, except net purchase price for this contract will not exceed, and we change that, we just say $350,000. So we've done 2 things there. First, we've done a few things there. There has to be a competing offer. period. If there is one, then our offer will increment up by $2,000. Then it's not going to go past $350,000, period, the end. So we've controlled a lot of the parameters just in that one sentence, because we don't want it to automatically go to $350,000. At least most people don't. You can have it go automatically to $350,000 if you just want to throw down and say, yeah, I'm done. I want this house. Great. Don't put the increment in there. Just say it's going to. If there's a competing offer, my offer instantly it's just going to go to $350,000. You can do that, but you can also, just incrementally pay a little bit more, so you just pay a little more than the other guy. The next sentence here says, net purchase price is defined as a purchase price minus any amount of seller concession written in 4.2 or elsewhere in the contract. So what that means is in 4.2 in the contract to buy sell, also known as the offer, there is a statement in there where the buyer can ask for a seller concession. Effectively, can I have some of the money? I'm going to give you a bunch of money, but can I have some of it back, please? You can actually do that. And this sentence is just clarifying how these two things work together, that the seller concession can be minus that. Next, buyer will adjust cash at closing and or new loan amount needed to reflect the increased purchase price. That is a very important sentence. So, if you talk to your lender and you talk to them and say, hey, I'm going to put an offer in at $300,000 and this thing triggers and goes up to $306,000, well, you just change your down payment amount. And if it went up to $350,000, there's a chance that you just went over the appraisal. And the seller is not obligated to sell the house at appraised value. You have a contract with the seller to sell the house at the purchase price. So there is some language that we put in there called an appraisal gap. There'll be another video on that coming soon. But that limits that risk. But you need to talk to your lender before you submit an offer like this to say, hey, what's my down payment going to look like at $350,000 if it goes there automatically? Because once you submit the offer, you've opened the door for this thing to run to $350,000. And where you don't have an appraisal gap, you need to be able to have enough money to do that, to make all that work. Appraisal gap kind of manages some of that risk, but we'll get into that in the other video because these two do play together really well, but trying to explain them both at the same time is really complicated. All right, so next it says if the seller exercises this condition to increase the purchase price, then not later than 1 day following MEC, the seller will provide buyer a copy of the bona fide offer. Buyer and seller will execute an agreement to amend, extend, specifying the increased purchase price. So that's two things we're doing here, right? The seller can't just say, yep, I had a competing offer at $305,000, so you're at $306,000 now. No, well they can say that, but we also need to see that they actually have a competing offer, a bona fide competing offer. They need to present that to us, to the buyer, so that they can see, oh, okay, yep, they did have one. It was at 305, so that makes sense that ours are triggered, and for ours to beat it, it's going to go to 306 automatically. They need to provide objective evidence to support the claim that there was a competing offer, and they can't just verbally state it. Next, it goes into saying, as a result of it, we're going to also do an amend extend. And the reason we want to do this is just a minor document that the buyer's agent or seller's agent put together to state definitively, after the escalation clause, the new purchase price is $306,000. And we want to do that as soon as possible because we don't want to get down the road, say after appraisal or worse yet at the closing table, and have the buyer and the seller disagree as to what the purchase price was because of the escalation. Like, we need to work that out right out day one. Get that clear as a bell to all parties. This is the new purchase price. So there's no serious situations later down the road. So escalation clauses are a very cool tool to help you gain a little bit of leverage, and they're good in any market, a buyer's market or seller's market, doesn't matter. I would say utilize them in every offer that you write, just because it helps you win. You can go in a little low if you want, and then you can come up to what you want if you would pay for it, right? See if you can get a deal. If it's a super hot seller's market, maybe you don't, maybe you wouldn't go in low, you would go in at the purchase price, or maybe even above the purchase price, and then have even a higher cap. You know, you don't want to offend the seller. You don't want to look like you're lowballing them, unless you know you're doing that deliberately. You know, because some sellers might just trash can your offer because this guy's just lowballing me, and they won't even get to the escalation clause, right? The listing agent should help them see that, but if you turn off the seller, it won't matter what the seller's agent tells them. So you want to be a little respectful, and then you know, write it in such a way that it is your genuine offer to the seller, and then see what happens. See if your offer is competitive in the market, and you win or don't win. So you know, with that, if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me over there. If you're not working with an agent, if you're working with an agent, reach out to them. They really need to explain that stuff to you, and they have all the information relevant to your cause that can help them explain it to you. Yeah, but like I said, you don't have any questions. Yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, feel free to give me a call over there, 719-212-4911, and I'd be happy to discuss that with you. Again, my name is Chris. I'm with Homes in 719 out of Colorado Springs. Hope you liked the video. Look for the appraisal gap video too. It's coming. I'm doing these in order, so hopefully it'll be uploaded shortly where you can learn more about that. Because typically, escalation and appraisal gap clause, they're both in all contracts that where you use them. They're together in almost all cases. So don't have to be, but generally they are. So thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. Talk to you later.